Hello everyone. So today we are going to talk about an important topic in Pandas and as well as in data analysis that many of the time you might come through is pivot table. So an important part of data analysis is the process of grouping, summarizing, aggregating and calculating statistics about data. So Pandas pivot table offer a powerful tool to perform these analysis techniques with Python. Sometimes the difference between pivot tables and group by is confusing. So you can think of pivot table as the multidimensional form of grouping. So in short, I'll explain the following topics in this video. What is group by method? What is the difference between pivot table and group by method? How to use pivot table? What are multi-level pivot tables? What are crosstab tables? So first let's start with what is group by method. So as we all know and already discussed, group by method helps you to group the data based on one particular column. So for example, let's group according to the categories of the lesson, and next let's find the mean scores according to this lesson as a column. So for that, first let me create a dummy data set. df equals to pd dot data frame brackets. Let's first take as class. The value will be list ABC and we multiply it with 4 times, comma, next value which we take is lesson. Again we take the value as list, so math, comma, stat, and we pollute this by 6 times. Next we take 6 as a column, and for value we take list, and that list we take MFMM and we pollute it 4 times. Okay, let's make it 3 basic simple. So now I take sibling, or take list and pollute it 4 times. And final, let me take score np dot range 40, 100, 5. First of all, I have to import here also in order to run that np.arrange. And now let's print df. Okay, I put double R and R. Okay, so as you can see, our data set has been polluted as shown in figure. So what we'll do, as already said, we'll group by on the lesson column and we'll find the mean score. So df dot group by on lesson column. What we want is the mean score. So we'll type score and as you have guessed it, dot mean in order to get the mean. Okay, what's the spelling of lesson? Okay, it's capital L. Okay, so as you can see, the group by on lesson is done. There are 2 lessons, math and stat, and their respective values, scores, means has been shown. Now let's create one more categorical column and find the means based on the values of these two categorical columns. So df dot group by. So for multiple columns, I have to take lesson, comma, class. Class is with capital C. After that, I have to take square bracket, specify score dot aggregate function which we'll be using, that is mean dot unstack. Let me shift plus enter. Now as you can see, we have done it. Now you might be wondering, then what is the difference between the pivot table and the group by function? So the group by method is generally enough for two-dimensional operations, but pivot table is used for multi-dimensional grouping operations. Now the next question is how to use a pivot table. So dataframe has a pivot table method. So let's create the table we created with the group by using pivot table. So for that we'll use df dot pivot underscore table and brackets, and we type score, comma, index that we want to index on, just like on the group by on the column. So lesson, and for columns you need respective class. Now press shift plus enter. Okay, unexpanded column. Okay, I passed. So basically we have to use small c. I used capital C up there. So as you can see, I've created the pivot table here. So here you go. Now let's create a pivot table with hierarchical indexes. So for that we'll do df dot again pivot underscore table. First I'll take square bracket, and on which column along with sibling I want to have score, as we are working on multiple columns. Index equal to, again we need multiple columns, so again for that we have to use square bracket, class, and lesson. Lesson was capital L, class was capital C. Again comma, columns, the small c equals to, now press shift plus enter. So this what gains capitals. Okay, now you can note that the missing data is written for the values that do not correspond in the table. So with margins equal to true, you can add the mean of the columns and rows to the table. So let me show you that. For lesson we have LESS and for margins specified as, okay, not in color, TRUE, press Shift plus Enter. Okay, again small as. Okay. So if you want to assign values instead of missing values, you can use the fill value function. So I just copy this entire piece of code, paste it here, and instead of margins, I write fill underscore value equals to 0, and I run it. So this was about the pivot table. Now let's understand the multi-level pivot tables. So you can also create multi-level pivot tables. For example, let's divide the sibling variables into interval with the cut method. The range I want 0 to 3. As you have already know what's the function of a cut method. So now let's create a multi-level data set using this sibling variable. So now you can see. So you can even increase the number of levels. The aggregate function options take the main function by default. You can change this function. Let me show you that also. So you just do df dot pivot scope table dex equal to SSON, comma, COLUMNS class and the aggregate function AGG, FU and C. So this is how you pass aggregate functions. And if suppose I want to have, let's take sum, for example. So now press Shift plus Enter. So you can see now instead of average, I have added this one. So if you want, you can use a separate function to implement for each column by using the dictionary structure. For example, let's use the max function for the sibling and the sum function for the score column. So let me just write the code. Now clearly see, for the aggregate function, we'll pass a dictionary. So for the sibling columns, we want the max to take place. And for score column, we want sum to take place. Okay. So then I press Shift plus Enter. So as you can see. So this is how you put different aggregate functions on the different columns. Now finally, in the end, let's take a look at the Crosstab method. So the Crosstab table is a special case of the pivot tables that calculate group frequencies. So let's use the Crosstab table for sibling and lesson columns. So let me write code. So in order to write a code, you can just do simply pt dot crosstab, and in the argument you can pass df dot sibling, comma, df dot lesson. So after running this piece of code, you can see I've created Crosstab on sibling and lesson columns. Now let's add the variable 6 to the index column. So I'll just copy this code, paste it here. I'll just put a square bracket around these. Put a comma, df dot 6, after shift press enter. So this is how the pivot table and the Crosstab function works. So this was all about the pivot tables. Hope you like it. Thank you.